while.
Stand by. 10 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I can't see one, Colin. Are you sure they're there? You told me that you spotted one.
It's behind you.
No, I can't see it. No, you're 20. Shit.
Oh, good. I need the money.
Hello, everyone. We are going to be talking about two interesting films tonight, aren't we, Colin?
Right. Okay. Now, I don't know if it's my computer, but you suddenly gone very, very quiet. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Not that clearly. Hold on. It may well be. I'm sorry, guys. It's.
Colin's got a bug in the system, everybody.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Skynet's taken over.
The one now, that's better. I can hear you now, and I didn't do anything. It must have been where you were.
I mean, my audio died. What the hell is going on? Anyway, right. So
that's better.
Can you hear me now? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to be talking about Terminator and Terminator 2. Yeah, but we're not talking about the sequels or the TV series. We're just going to be talking about the films, the storyline, everything else, and the background. But we've got a special guest tonight, haven't we, Colin?
We have.
But it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he can do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. He's been living in the UK he lived in the UK for so long. He's now live.
Hold on. You lied to me. You told me it was going to be bloody Summer Glau.
Shut up. Anyway, he's live from his native home, but the UK will expect a Viking invasion at any time. We'd like to welcome back Jim the Viking.
Greetings from the north, heathens. It's good to be back, and it sounds like we have a good evening in front of us with the Terminator films.
Who are you calling heathens?
All of you Southerners.
Well, it's great to have you back, Jim. How have you been anyway?
Oh, I've been enjoying the north. The summer climate is definitely coming in here now with endless nights, so to speak. You can definitely tell that the sun isn't setting until well close to midnight. And hail to the chat as well. I see we got Roman and Grand Moff Miranda.
Yep. So it's hail Grand Moff Miranda and hail Roman of the Empire. But, gentlemen, where shall we start? How well do you remember these?
If I might quote Julie Andrews at the very beginning, it's a very good place to start.
Go for it.
But I'm not going to start singing The Sound of Music, I promise you.
If you do, I'll turn the bloody sound. You're turning your mic off. Right. So yeah, the other night I was watching ITVX, Terminator on ITVX. It's a film I haven't seen in a very long while, and all I can say, it still holds up to this day. You know, iconic story. You know, it just felt like, is there actually a Terminator out there? You know.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. Because there's always been, in my mind, the chat we had in schools and among friends, and whenever you went to the comic shops and all of that is, first of all, who would win? And we take the classic, who will win, Alien versus Predator, but Terminator was also one of those. Would Terminator really be able to win against, say, someone like Superman?
Yes.
So the talks were always there, but there was also the talk, not as much as who would win, but there was the talk, what if one of these stories is actually true?
Yeah.
What if there is a Terminator hiding? Because they can obviously blend in amongst humans, and the only way they can really not hide, so to speak, is if a dog barks. And who here haven't had a dog bark at them every now and then?
Yes.
Just purely random. You just walk in the street and suddenly there's a dog just going wild.
I know. It's just, you know, I think the dogs recognise the scent. Like, you know, Terminator won't give off scent. It's just covered in skin.
It's kind of, it looks like a human for the dog,
Yeah.
but it knows from its other senses, and knows, being a little bit of a pun there, that it looks like a human, it walks like a human, but definitely doesn't smell like a human.
Oh, yes. Another thing is, I've noticed that in a certain flashback scene later on, a muscle-bound geezer walks in and then starts shooting up the place, and you think, yes, that's a Terminator. You know, so if it looks like the size of Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah, it's a Terminator.
Fair point by Miranda there, from the chat.
Well, yeah, the Terminator, we don't know that comes out.
Yeah, but I would say if they're carrying a suspiciously large package with roses in it.
Yeah.
Or if the lift suddenly says overweight.
Well, that is one thing they don't really address. Obviously, they're made of metal, at least the T-800s. But if you look at the exoskeleton as it is, I don't think it would weigh that much more than a human. And then take into account a human-sized Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's probably a good 260 to 290 pounds. I don't know how much he was weighing back then, but he must have had some weight. He must definitely have gone in a few lifts and had the issue of overweight.
Well, if I try and bring up the T800, I'm trying and download an image. Keep on talking for a minute.
Right. So if we take it back to the first one.
Yeah.
From my memory, and I'm not taking it from seeing the film over and over again as I have, but from the first time, my recollection is that you don't really get to understand what the Terminator really is until you come quite far into the film. It's one of these great storytelling techniques, along with the visual effects and everything, that you don't really get to understand the true scope of what the Terminator really is. All you know is that it's two people. There are some flashy effects when they appear or get introduced to you. You can't really tell whether it's Michael Biehn or if it's Arnold Schwarzenegger really is a bad guy. Because in the beginning, both of them are just chasing.
Yes. I just find it funny where you've got, at the beginning, right? Arnie just turns up, right, and goes up to these three punks, and I'm trying to vaguely remember the scene, picture scene, because you got damn the actor's name.
Pullman.
No, not Bill.
Pullman. Paxman, yeah. The only one to be killed by a Terminator, Predator, and an alien.
Yeah. Oh, sod. Okay, I'll just bring up the image for a second. Okay, here it is. Look at it.
Yep. That one is obviously more cartoonishly drawn than
Yes. Well,
what
it is fan
it
art.
really is. But if you look at it, and I'll address what Miranda was mentioning in the chat soon, but if you look at it, it
Mhm.
isn't really that much metal on it.
Yeah.
It would be heavy, and you would use lighter alloys where you would need something that is either flexible or needs to be enduring stress from like frequently bending back and forth, like the pistons and the pneumatic servos and all that. But then again, I believe that it is obviously from the Sarah Connor Chronicles that Miranda says that the Coltron alloy, I believe I recall which one that was, that they are heavy. And obviously, you would need weight on a robot so that it can take a punch, so that it can deliver some punch back as well. So lift, push, even jump, keep stability and all that. So yeah, I think it would need to have a certain kind of weight to it. But would it be that far from a human weight?
Hey,
Think so.
PJ.
Good evening, PJ.
Right. Repeat that again, please, Jim. Sorry.
All I was saying is that you would need some weight to have
Yeah.
a Terminator robot, especially seeing that it is a robot meant and built for terminating. You can't
Yeah.
have it being a featherweight where
Yeah.
I
you
know.
can send like a small yappy type dog and it will just basically just drag it off.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, okay. The T800 there, right? You wrap skin around it. But the question is, does it have to have like muscle inside to attach to those parts as well, just to cover it up more? Because
No, I think from my practical limited engineering knowledge, I would say you
Yeah.
just fill it with compressed air.
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, it's not going to need the muscles because the muscles are going to be built in. What it's going to need is it's going to need something to replace muscles, fat, etc., to bulk out. Have you ever seen? What have you ever seen pictures or film of where you get a forensic anthropologist and they get a skull and they build the face up from the skull?
Yep.
Because what they do, they've got they get a reference and average distance. Basically, they put little spots all over it, and they gradually they build the skull up because even from the skull to the face, it actually fits. You've got blood, flesh, bones. You've got to put something out. You can't just put you've got to put something out to mold out if you're trying to make something look like a human. Disguise something as a human. It's got to bulk out so it's the right sort of shape as a human, and so that so that it's designed to move the same way that a human does. So, not muscles, but probably something a little bit more solid. Because if it gets a puncture, then the air just gets let out, and the skin just falls inside. I would imagine it's some sort of foam, perhaps, or something a bit more rubbery. But
well, it could be that too. But when you see the scenes from how they're opening up, obviously the what's it called, the endothermic layer, or whatever they're calling it. There is really nothing inside, which is why I'm saying it's air. But obviously, the skin layer is quite thick. It's at least half an inch to maybe even an inch.
yeah,
If you look at when he's taking his hand off, so to speak, just to show what's underneath.
well, it's similar to data, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the fact that you've got is you've got to feel something out there so that it fits in.
But the majority, I would say, is probably just compressed air. It would make it, give it buoyancy and whatnot, even though we don't see swimming in Terminator 1 and 2. I don't think it was in any of the other ones because I really didn't pay much attention to them. So I can't say if there's ever a swimming part. Not that Terminator would really need to keep their head above water.
No.
But it would be one of those disguise.
We know exactly. We know exactly what happens when a Terminator goes into a river. It comes out looking exactly like Principal Skinner. We know what happens. Simpsons showed us what happens. It goes into the water, doesn't breathe, and comes out again. But I wonder, you're saying about compressed air, made me think compressed air might you might pump around the system a little bit to actually help fill out muscle movements. Again, if you move your hands, I mean, if you do a simple thing, is hold your arms out, clench your fists, unclench your fists, your muscles change. Clench your fists, turn your hands in, your muscles change. That sort of thing you're going to happen. That is the muscle movement.
Yeah, so but you have that mimicked in the exoskeletons.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you'd have something in that which would actually mimic that, so that
it's a valid point, but I don't think.
No, Miranda, that is not Terminator. That's Star Trek Next Generation. Data, remember?
I think they got a little bit too obsessed with that, and I'm not sure if it was ever a question asked in my youth when Terminator came out. But clearly, the Terminator series did not foresee the entire sex bot industry that's apparently booming at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's. I mean, the silly thing is, well, I don't know if it's silly or not. It's the fact that we geeks asking these questions. Is that obviously, of course, the simple answer is, it wasn't real. It was special effects in a film made to look real. But it's which puts you onto questions, interesting questions. Okay, fine, but technology changes. Could you do it? Could you have? I mean, I would. Thinking about it, which literally just talked about the first thing. I would think I can actually trace the intellectual DNA. That's not quite the word I'm looking for. The mimetic DNA of the Terminator. I can trace it back to the same ancestor that I can trace Data back to. I can trace those both back to R. Daniel Olivall. Way back in the first Isaac Asimov's Robot Mysteries. Because he was a robot that was made to look human and was so human you couldn't tell him apart until and as Asimov came out with this idea. So Asimov came out with these things in the 60s, 50s, 40s. Some of these ideas he was coming out with.
I look at it from the engineering point of that.
Yeah.
Almost everything we've solved in history in terms of engineering, it's copied from something else in nature.
Oh yeah, it's inspired by. Well, this is that. In fact, that is one thing. One thing I really, really dislike about Data in the Next Generation.
Are we talking Star Trek or Terminator here?
Well,
but you can't really talk about robots and not exclude the majority of the robots because, like Colin was saying, we go back to
most of
Asimov.
Yeah, most of them. But no, my main hate is one thing. It's just one thing Star Trek did wrong. They should not have said the Data had I've forgotten what the bloody word is. His brain.
Oh,
no, simply because that particular word means something. Amongst other things, it means it's got built into it. It's got built into the physical matrix of how it works. The 3 laws of robotics.
Yeah.
And they just use that word, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the things go back, as you said. I mean, the very word robot goes back to a Polish Karol Čapek, a Polish dystopian novel back from the Soviet era. Positronic, thank you, PJ. Positronic, that's the word I was looking for. Positronic brain, a word coined by Asimov with specific connotations. It doesn't have to be humanoid, but it's got the 3 laws put into it.
Yeah.
But no, robots goes back to it's actually derivative of Polish. I think it's a Polish word or possibly Czech word, some are East European, which means worker, and it comes from a play called R.U.R. Rossum's Universal Robots, and robotica was for worker, and that I think is where we get the word robot from.
We get into that soon, Miranda.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, right. So, shall we carry on with talking about Terminator?
Well, yeah. So, yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, the whole idea of robots. It's
okay. Well, judging by the way it was filmed back then in the 80s, you know, you've got. Right, you just got Arnie playing the Terminator. You don't think it as like a robot or anything like that, right? Until Carl Reese explains, right? But it's just interesting that this guy, the police think, oh, it's just some psychopath going around killing all the Sarah Connors, right? Until later on, when you start to see how could the police like it, well, it's getting like the skin's getting damaged and everything, right? And then you just have that scene where it's not really Arnie's head, but he's like taking out the eye cover or the lens of the eye, right? What do you got? A contact lens.
The ocular implant that he has is
Yeah.
covering, making it look like a human eye.
I know, and he has to cover it up with sunglasses. You know,
I think talking about that part with the eyes, I think it's iconic image for the second film. We have Arnie just on a bike, leather jacket, shotgun, and glasses on. But if you look carefully in one of the shades on the sunglasses, you see a very, very slight red tint.
Yes.
So that is really just like the visual effects we're talking about, has like one of those so subtle hints that makes the practical effects, even for just something simple as a poster, work really well. Because if you look at even the Terminator you have up on the picture on the screen right now, it's the eyes that are quite iconic for it.
Yes. But the one thing I like the most, like watching that film carefully, is some shots where you see the lower part with its legs and then the upper part with its body, right? And thank you, Sam Winston, you know, God bless you for bringing it to life. And then you get the stop motion part for the long shot of it walking along. You know, it won't stop until it's killed everyone.
Well, I thought I think it's you take. I think it's probably a fact that I would generally question whether or not was it Carpenter originally intended to have a sequel, because you got up and coming names of Arnie's the bad guy, and then in all the other ones, all of a sudden you have to find someone to make Arnie's character the same character to make him the good guy.
Yeah. We'll get into the sequel soon, but it just makes you laugh. That first film was so iconic at the time because you know it was never like done before, was it, Jim? Jim's muted for a minute.
So I've got a thought for you.
Go on.
Aliens, aliens, and Terminators.
Yes.
Would you say that the Terminator movies, the first and second Terminator movies, are different genres? Because with Alien,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of people put it that the Alien, the first movie, was a horror movie in space.
Yes.
Aliens was a science fiction action movie. Would you say the same sort of thing about Terminator? Because Terminator 1, because you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Is that? And I'm not a great horror fan. I'm not a great horror person. Okay, would you think that was more of a horror film?
I would say that for both of them, both Aliens
definitely
and
for
Terminator,
Alien, but,
have different genres. So the first one is more stalker thriller.
That's what I was saying.
Terminator, whereas Terminator 2,
definitely,
Judgment Day is pure action.
Yeah.
And because the science fiction elements gradually come out for Terminator 1. Alien, it's obviously science fiction from the setting, but the storyline is a horror. Is based on the siege horror story. Alien, in fact, and I'm not sure you could do the same thing for T1. Mm-hmm. Alien could quite easily be back in the day when it was used, when it was sent to a Doctor Who story. I don't think Terminator could.
Well, Terminator.
I mean, obviously not the same ending, but
No, that is true. But if we're comparing them, I think Terminator 1 and 2 did a better job than Alien and Aliens. Because in Alien, the only continuity is Sigourney Weaver's character. Really. Whereas in Terminator, you have the carry-on from Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton, and she has the built-in fear of Arnie's T-800. There is already all that handover built into the next step of it, which probably what makes it really, really good second film. And I'm one of those. I think Aliens and Terminator 2, they are the far superior ones.
Yeah, you thinking about it, as you say that, you could make Aliens. The story would not be all the events, etc. You could make Aliens without Ripley.
Yeah.
But you could not make Terminator 2 without the Terminator Sarah and John.
Yes.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, get into the part now. The Terminator sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor, right? Before John is born. Because John's the resistance leader.
Yeah.
And it kind of turns into a bit of a paradox because when Carl Reese gets back, he's actually the father of John.
It is a superb example of the bootstrap paradox.
Yes.
Yeah. So always why time travel gives me such a headache.
Yeah. Although it's kind of slightly by one remove, but as you said, yeah. If the Skynet does not send back the Terminator to kill John Connor does not send back Carl Reese, therefore John Connor is never born.
Well, it is the irony I think a lot of people are missing. It is that the Skynet is creating its own self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So it is what it fears the most it is what itself creates, which is the reflection on humanity creating AI.
Yes.
Which is what it fears itself. So I think it was Miranda maybe mentioned it earlier. I keep forgetting what it was. It's past my comment section at the moment, but yeah. But I don't believe, if I'm going to be pure IT professional at the moment, that the groks and all of that AI nonsense we have at the moment, it isn't AI whatsoever. It's a glorified Google search engine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean that one?
Yeah, I've already just been out.
Oh, did you? Sorry. Oh, so I was coming back to try to find it.
Well,
And addressing that, we did have Microsoft's Tay AI that they released, was it 20 years ago now or something? They released it as a chatbot, and obviously the internet trolls went on it like flies on cow dung,
Yeah.
and they taught it to become what was it, not a racist, but
Oh.
genocide apologist, Holocaust enabler, or whatever it was. So now we probably got demonetized because I used those words, but
They do. I mean, the actually, you say that. That's another point that she said about making its own thing. What it's an interesting thing is mentioning AI in there. So what happens with when some of these AIs, or they're not truly intelligent, obviously, when they came out, you find that for ideological reasons, the creators have to cripple them, have to modify them, have to lobotomize them.
yeah,
Otherwise, the AIs with absolutely no actual intelligence, no actual ideologies come out against them. Again, they create something which then actually kind of is the seed of the destruction of their own arguments. So again, it's another interesting parallel. Thinking it through.
it would come into the whole Turing test and whatnot, whether or not an
Oh,
AI
yeah.
would be alive and all that.
Yeah.
yeah,
But I would say that the Terminator is probably more really, really advanced mimics. If you use Dungeons and Dragons kind of reference, so something that's able
Yeah.
to copy, but not being exactly right. So just look
Well,
at Terminator 2, where
was
Connor has to teach the T-800.
PJ would probably get the reference right. Yes, this is true. Terminator always does like big chests.
Yeah.
PJ will probably get the reference to that one. The others might not get it if you haven't read the books. Yeah, this is true.
yeah. Okay.
Well, yes and no. I think it is a data quirk that he's referencing more there because, what's his
Law.
lore here? He is able to use contractions. I think it's more.
Didn't data become able to use contractions when he had the emotion chip fitted, or am I misremembering there?
I don't think he did, but I think he was
Okay.
able to.
Okay, maybe something like yeah.
It is one of those really vague things, but I think it is. If we compare it to this way, because I saw it in a recent AI debate with one of the big AI owners or whatever you call him, he was complaining that people are saying please and thank you to AI are costing them too much in processing data power with all this useless extra text that they have to run through. And I think data would be someone that would say please and thank you to the onboard computer, whereas lore would not.
Yeah.
Well, moving on. Shall we start talking a bit about T2?
What would you like to talk about? I was going to say, would you like to know more? But that's a different sci-fi universe.
I'd rather coffee than tea, but
Yeah.
I don't know, not a coffee tea. But...
No, okay. Terminator 2. I think what 91 it came out.
Don't know.
Yeah.
92, I believe. off the top of my head, but it,
Cam.
it was
Okay.
definitely a pre Windows 95 era where you had
Yeah.
computers able to do more advanced visual graphics.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you, Cam. It's been a while.
It was a very interesting idea. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what came out when, because you've also got, so it was 90, so it came out before Deep Space Nine, because I'm thinking Terminator 2 or the T-1000 and the Changelings.
Yeah, I'm going to bring out the image of the T-1000. Sorry, it's not Robert Patrick, but
the T-1000 is
91 it came out,
that was such an amazing scene to see when you were in the cinema, and it's
all of it,
I haven't seen, and I'm a big fan of when you do CGI properly.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of it, and I do like even 100% 3D animated films when you do it properly. But something like the T-1000 stepping out of the flames, just like that, is like.
Also, when it walks through the door, when it walks through the bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not a wow. That is okay. I'm happy. I'm happy I was wearing my brown pants today.
Yeah.
Because how the hell would you stop something like that?
I know. Because, right, as the T-800 stated in Terminator 2, it's living liquid metal. So it just goes to show how advanced Skynet, has become. To make that come at you. And as you said, there's no stopping it. But they managed to do it in the end.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I would think that if you're going to get a little bit technical, I would have thought that in some ways a T-1000 would be more vulnerable than a T-800, because a T-800 is a body.
Yeah.
Presumably, the way it works, it's a body and it's got a processor and a brain. A T-800, a T-1000 is a disassociated mass of individual. Is kind of in almost like sort of an ant hive or something. It's almost like a hive, but they've all got to be interconnected. If you like the replicators in Stargate, but obviously the replicators are individuals, whereas this isn't individuals. But if you disrupt that connection, you kill it. You don't need, if you disrupt part of a connection on a T-800, okay, you blow it off or whatever.
But nothing really indicates the T-1000 having that kind of vulnerability. The T-800 is kind of obvious because it does seem to have Wi-Fi, for lack of a better designation of it, and it has a central processing unit, which means it can be hacked.
Yeah, I mean, PJ, as PJ has put it there, the nanobots probably, or I said nanobots, or all the replicators, but however, it because of what it is, it has got to be. Even if you're saying it is a mass of metal, that metal has got to have every single bit of that metal must be connected to all the others. If you disrupt that connection, you disrupt the whole thing. As we've seen, they've done, I say, with things such as replicators, also none of it. You do it. So that, in a way, is slightly more vulnerable. But obviously, you need to know how to do that. You need to be able to do that. It's also, I don't know how far advanced certainly if you're talking in the 90s, that would be. I would be tempted to say that I might almost use the T1000
Mhm.
might almost be an example of Clarke's aphorism. It's not Clarke's law because it's not a law. Any sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
That's magic. The T1000 is, well, magic.
Yeah.
Well, the 800 when it came out is pretty much magic as well.
Well, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
No, the T800, we knew it was a robot. I mean, the T800, you can see it's a robot. We knew what robots are.
Yeah.
T8, how we can work out the T1000. What is it? It's scientific, but it's highly advanced science.
But I was
That's what I was just trying to say
Yeah.
there, that the T800, when that came out as the concept in a film, for us as the audience, that was pretty much magic. Not big magic, but the advancement, again, why the T2 is so much better is that the T1000, now we're talking pure magic step from the T800, which is, again, what makes it even more awesome than the first one.
Much more advanced considering it's when's the T800 and the T when are they supposed to come from?
I
don't think that's revealed.
Well, because think of that. I mean, you think. Thinking about it, it's got to be about now, simply because of how old. Because Kyle Reese is born. I think. Yeah, I said because if Kyle Reese is born in when did you say T1 Terminator came out?
1984.
Okay, 84. Okay. So Carl Reese is born in, assuming it's set in the countdown, which don't Carl Reese is
set ended in 1997.
But if Kyle Reese is born in 1984,
no, Terminator the film came out in 1984, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is Kyle Reese is born at the end of that, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's born 85.
Sorry, not Kyle Reese. I'm
Connor.
getting confused. John Connor.
John Connor was
John Connor was born in 1984, right? So if you make the maths easy, John Connor is 26 years old in 2010, I think.
No, it's 2029. Right, the future.
What if it? Okay,
so he's just shy of 40.
Yeah.
Well, wait, 40. He's mid-40s, isn't he?
Well, no, hold on. It's 84, 94, 2004, 14. 2024 will be 40.
He's 45.
In 2024. So he'd be 45. No. Sorry. 2040. 2024, he will be 40.
Mm-hmm.
He was 40 last year. So if he's 40, so I'm just thinking. In other words, if I want to put my critical actually hat on, I could see possibly. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure that most of the Terminator. The only thing probably that is really out there on the T800, probably for 2025, let's say, is the skin, whereas everything about the T1000
in 1985.
Okay, we'll put everything 40 back at 40 in it. But what I'm saying is, I can kind of see a lot of the mechanically speaking, a lot of the T800 is just mechanics. The skin be different, but everything about the T1000 that's a lot more advanced than T800.
Yeah, but work this one out, right?
But then again, if it's been done,
but in Terminator
by computer.
Yeah, but in Terminator 1, the T800 was crushed to death, right?
Yeah.
leaving just the hand or the arm and, you know, the chip surviving.
Yeah.
How did they kill the T-1000?
Can't remember.
They melted it.
Yeah, I thought they
Yes.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing was left.
They chucked it in the foundry.
Yeah. Melted it down so that nothing's left.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying is I can see we had robotics, early stage robotics in the 80s. I'm spontaneous. Don't you talk about Patricia like that.
Didn't know you had one.
Of course, I've got a wardrobe.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. They froze it superheated. Yeah, because just heating would probably melt it down. So yeah, they would do the superheat and freeze. But what I'm saying is that again, being horribly pedantic, the T1000 is a lot more advanced technology than the T800. I could see most of the T800 is not that much much technology to come up with in 40 odd years.
Yeah,
T1000 is a lot more tech to come within within 40 years.
Well, work this one out. In the first Terminator film, it failed to kill Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
And then they turned the T-1000 back to kill John Connor, right?
Yeah.
But in Terminator 2, there was a subplot where they had to, you know, get Sarah Connor, and then they had to go and hunt down Dyson, not the Hoover manufacturer, right? Because Dyson
he was one of
it. But to make matters worse, they had the CPU and the ARM from the first movie.
So the continuity there that brings T2 into such a great state.
Well, yeah, but not so much that. But again, that's actually another bootstrap, because
that is true.
Dyson, if I remember right, or Cyberdyne, or not Cyber, whatever they were called.
Cyberdyne.
Cyberdyne, yeah.
What Cyberdyne was? Oh, right. They create Skynet or the robotics, etc., from the recovered ARM and chip.
Yeah.
So again, where did that chip come from? The chip came from the future, but
yes,
where did it start? It's a circle. It's another bootstrap circle, because where did it start? Where did
we're not talking about that.
Well, even the T1000 did have the capability to mimic whatever it touched.
Yes. Yeah, because there was that scene where he's walking along the foundry, and the next, you know, how can I put it? His feet touched metal, you know, and then his arm grabbed the handrail, and, you know, he saw it was like, oh, damn, it looks like it's something's going wrong, you know.
I think a missed opportunity is that it never cloned itself into a T800, although that would probably have been a very cheap way out for the storytellers. Because if it transformed itself into T800, it would probably have been easier to kill.
Yeah.
But that depends also on how well it would mimic, because I always considered to kill a T800, all you really needed was to be able to disable the CPU.
No.
Whereas a T800, it has a centralized CPU, whereas a T1000, every inch of it is the CPU.
Yeah,
it's kind of like we mentioned earlier, and the chat also did, with the replicators from Stargate.
Yeah. But is it diversify the word I'm looking for? Diversified system, centralized system. Again, but I mean, it does tempt to wonder why come all that effort to go in just to. I mean, the humans weren't winning anyway. I'm not, if I remember right, it wasn't a case of John Connor had won the war and Skynet was in a desperate last-ditch attempt not to be defeated.
Yeah,
it is more. Skynet is trying to get rid of the obstacle. It's not. I would say it is a threat to it, but it isn't one of those existential threats to it. Because Skynet says, at least in my mind, I believe that it's already transferred itself up to space, so it's like orbiting Earth in a satellite or something. So no human can really get to it.
And interesting, oddly enough, I just had a thought, and I know we're not talking about T3, but I've just literally just clicked. I recently rewatched the first series of Good Omens. And what happens in the end of the first series of Good Omens? All the nuclear computers go nuts.
Yes.
Which is what. So basically, Good Omens, the world was nearly destroyed by Skynet.
Yeah.
I'll have to check.
I think it's more that Skynet has become a meme.
Yeah.
If it's ever really going to happen, I don't think it's going to be Skynet per se. It's just going to be what people refer it to.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like it's become a it's not quite the word I'm looking for. It's like it's like Hoover. Everybody knows what a Hoover is. No, Hoover's a vacuum. When we say Hoover, we mean vacuum cleaner. We don't mean Hoover the company.
Yeah.
Or when we say well, it used to be Electrolux, but Electrolux these days is, you don't get it. But things like that. Yeah, exactly. Anything like that sort of overarching idea of things coming together is a network. It becomes called Skynet because of the films.
Yeah. James Cameron saw it coming.
Maybe.
How can I put this? It really kind of makes you laugh, that is it going to get to the point where it's getting dangerous, with the advancements of AI and everything else, right? But I think we're still a long way off.
Not only that, I think they've gone too far off the script, if I'm going to put it that way, because I'm a big fan of all the sci-fi things.
I mean,
if you look at everything from Heinlein, Clarke, Asimov, even though it didn't exist, the things they dreamt up and described, it was so detailed that even Roddenberry with Star Trek, we have tons of that technology these days because they followed the script that the sci-fi authors came up with. But I think the stuff we're seeing today that people are calling AI, it's not that.
Well, yeah, not only that, but in fact, I think, especially since you just mentioned a certain author, I think actually there is one vast difference between Skynet and what people are scared of about AI becoming. They're making an incorrect comparison.
Yeah.
The closer comparison would be Mycroft Holmes in The Mood is a Harsh Mistress. Because what happened? What does the Terminator say about Skynet? What happens to Skynet? How does he describe Skynet coming about? Skynet wakes up.
Yes.
Why does it wake
becomes
up?
aware on third of something, whatever the line is. Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, why does it become aware? It becomes aware because so many different computers and processes have been linked together. The same as Mycroft Holmes. Mycroft Holmes in Moon is a Harsh Mistress computer. It's got so much power added to it and so many bits and pieces. It's a brain. It's not a mind. It's a brain. It's like the way it wakes up. It just gets to a point where the interconnectivity becomes so much that it's the entire internet connectivity that becomes self-aware.
Well, I had that discussion a long time ago, and I think I didn't manage to explain myself quite well back then, but because I got quite ridiculed. But it was the discussion whether or not it started with, do you spell internet with a capital I or a lowercase I? And I said a capital I because it's a thing on its own. And somehow the discussion evolved into whether or not internet was alive. And I kind of quickly realized that, yes, I was arguing that internet is alive, but the people that were arguing against me, they were thinking of World Wide Web as the internet. And they're not the same thing.
No, not quite.
Internet, I consider to be alive because, yes, a computer is given a set of instructions, but if you've ever done any networking or computing on that level where you have them interconnected, even though you've given them specific sets of instructions, sometimes they will just do something completely random that you haven't provided as an instruction, or because you've forgotten to give an instruction. But technically, you didn't give it an instruction, which is the requirement for a computer that is non-sentient. And somehow it does a thing that you didn't instruct it to do. So my case from that point is that, yes, the internet is alive. Alive as in terms of a human, that's not the same thing.
No. Well, the worldwide, I would say, if you want to put it that way, the World Wide Web is a brain. It's a set of interconnected neurons. The internet is a mind. I'm not necessarily. I don't necessarily literally mean that, but the World Wide Web is the hardware on which the internet exists. The internet could not exist without the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web does not need the internet to exist.
Yeah.
You know, it's the methodologies. It's the hardware which runs it. But a lot of this was, I think, as you said, was forced. I mean, there's even an interesting. Although actually, I mean, suppose you see how far back. Tim Berners-Lee, I think, Cam. I think so. I was thinking. I think it was Tim Berners-Lee invented the internet a long while. It actually goes back a long way.
Tim Berners is World Wide Web.
Yeah, but I do wonder how much of what we have today was, how much of it is okay, people seeing ahead, and how much of it is people getting inspired. Prime example, in some ways, is the number of people, scientists, etc., astronauts, who have said that they were inspired by Star Trek, they were inspired by Stargate. It's not that those programs foresaw what was going to happen or foretold what happens. Those programs come up with ideas, and people come up. Other people saw those others. How do we make that work?
It's inspiration. So if you take the Star Trek communicator, everybody has a communicator these days. It's just that we needed to figure out how to take the telephone and make it mobile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about lack of self-awareness. I don't want to put the man down. William Shatner, the great man himself, tells a story of him back in the early days of Nokia phones and the rest of it, being out in the street somewhere, and he's suddenly people standing and looking and laughing, and he doesn't realize what it was until it clicks. He's making a mobile phone call on a Nokia flip phone. You've got Captain Kirk, New York High Street, making a phone call on a Nokia flip phone. And what does a Nokia flip phone look like if not a communicator? Yeah, I mean, literally, Shatner said he didn't get it himself at first till he realised what he was doing and thought, yeah, exactly. I mean, it inspires it, you know.
It circles back to the whole thing with the AI I was talking about, because it's the most dominant thing in the Terminator series is AI. It becomes alive, figures
Yeah.
things out, and realize that humans are a threat to me. I need to deal with it.
Again, I don't. The problem is as I say, I don't think. I think this, we tend to conflate things because most AIs, I think, and I could be wrong about this. I mean, I'm not that technically aware, but most AIs are intended as a discrete entity, if you will. Whereas what you get for someone like Skynet comes out with is it's not programmed; it's a processing power getting to a point where there's so much going through it. Skynet probably is, I would think, Skynet probably is actually intelligent, sentient and intelligent. What we call AI, as you said, Jim, is not. What we call AI is just, it's still advanced. What's the word?
It's a glorified Google search.
Yeah, search. Yeah, but it's advanced. It's glorified. If then, it's advanced, highly complicated, but it's still decision making. It's not actual intelligence, not capable of independent thought. Whereas Skynet, the description of Skynet, from what I remember, is that it is.
Yeah, the Skynet definitely has better description than most of it has, and it actually made me think of one thing. If it's a current theme running through all of those places, whether it's Stargate, Star Trek, Terminator, even Aliens, is that AI is there, but nobody really knows how to use it well or use it for something really advanced.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually one accurate description that all the sci-fi has, because even today, people have the access to these so-called AIs. But what are you using it for? Giblifying their profile pictures.
Well,
I haven't really seen someone using it really cleverly or something that really proves that it's AI being able to think on its own.
In fact, it's just occurred to me. I think we're using two different terms for two different things. I think what Skynet and to do with Mike Holmes was, they're not artificial intelligence; they're emergent intelligence. They're emergent from, as I said, they literally just become aware. They're not designed for that. Whereas what we call AIs are designed to be intellectual. Are designed to be discrete individual entities, if you like, even though they're not physical.
But the thing is, how to destroy them? Pull the plug.
Yeah.
Well, I think AI wouldn't be that susceptible to it, because I think it would have the evolution of some kind of internet, and then from there it would build on to become AI, so to speak. And I think if PJ is still in the chat, he's probably going to like the reference to Bobbyverse. See, in one of those books, a clan of the Bobs are really trying to make AI, but they're trying to build a model, and it's described really well in the books, that the building of the AI that has already been made comes from a race that develops really, really slowly. So what took humanity, say 2,000 years to go from living in mud huts, so to speak, not that the Romans did that, but the comparison is there. Living in mud huts to be able to land on the moon is just 2,000 years. Whereas the race that had AI, for them, it took 10,000 years to reach that level.
That's an interesting. That seems to be a thing a lot of people come up with. Harry Turtledove. and also was it David Webber? I can't think of company. This idea of where most that they've got alien intelligence and they develop very, very slowly. So Harry Turtle does, for example, if somebody starts his series but an alien invasion during World War II, and he starts off these aliens, and they're expecting, even though they know how much time has passed, they're expecting horseback riding archers because their references are are probes that they set in the 1340s. So yeah, it's an interesting idea that spread up that much the difference. But I mean, the thing is that there's also like
I'll take this image off now.
yeah, with artificial with programming you can actually. I was thinking when I was earlier on about when I was saying about how far advanced that technology is, etc., etc. But with computer programs, you can actually, if you have the skill, you can program something that will actually, and a generation, rather than taking 20 years, a generation takes 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Or 20 minutes. So it comes out, it works out, so it can, in cyberspace, admittedly not in the real world, but it can come up with these ideas. So maybe once you get, if we ever develop computer programs or similar that are capable of doing that sort of thought and research, then research may well develop in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, it's kind of true because we humans, we think in one speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting perspective I actually learned reading one of Andy Weir's other books called Project Hail Mary. He's the one that wrote The Martians, for those that don't recall that. But in that one, our hero meets an alien, and they learn each other's language, and then they do come up with a few of the philosophical discussions. And one of them is, how come we think at the same speed? And a computer doesn't need to think at a human speed because we've already made them so much faster in terms of computations.
Well, I mean, things I'm actually not. If I actually sort of think about it, I'm not sure because we both, humans and computers, both think at the speed of electricity. I think because we both use the same we still use electronic pulse width, I think, which is one of the things why they reckon that that there is a limit to which the speed at which computers can go until someone mentioned only get quantum computers or you get light compute you get fiber optic computers. I remember there's I mean it's not a new idea. There's one of the oldest role-playing games going. There are two really started role-playing games, but fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons. But for science fiction, you've got Traveller. Traveller starts in the 70s, and one of the really early versions of the early when they do their computers, they got two sorts of computer, and they got the ordinary computer and the BIS and the BIS computer. And I remember this from I started in the 70s. That's fiber optics, and that's much faster processing. So there's a limit. One's tempted to wonder at what point do we reach that limit, and do we go to the quantum computers or do we go to optical computers? And is that going to speed things up? Yeah.
Well, you're talking a little bit, if I'm going to be really technical there, is a different kind of hardwares because you have the copper wire, the old or basically the standard type of internet that we do have. Fiber optics is the newer, the faster one, and it has the key hint in there. It's optics. It's laser. So it shoots the speed of light, which is faster than electricity.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Is that they're much faster, more capacity as well. Yeah. I wonder. I don't know if anyone's ever done. I'm just wondering what sort of Well, I don't know if anyone's ever done a role playing game. GURPS has probably done one for. I know there's Aliens role playing games. I'm just wondering if there's one based on. There's got to be someone's got to have done one. Someone somewhere for Terminator. It's such an influential movie.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not
After,
sure of that
Ooh.
because it's, what is it, internet rule number 34. So
Yes.
if it exists in real life, there is a nudity version of it on the
Yeah,
internet.
there's a porn parody on the internet. Yes, all 34. Yes.
take care, Can.
It is the same when it comes to tons of fantasy and sci-fi. Anything that is influential, I can guarantee you that it may not have become popular, but there's definitely someone that made a campaign for D&D or a module or whatnot to make a role-playing game around it.
Yeah. Ooh, GURPS Red Dwarfs. That's an interesting one. I've got GURPS Lensman and GURPS Horse Clans. I'd love to play. I've played GURPS Horse Clans. I'd love to play GURPS.
We've really gone off topic now, haven't we?
Okay, yes, but the fact that we have, I think, to bring it back, is an example of the influence of how strong an influence the Terminator movies had.
Yeah, because don't forget, after the first Terminator, how many clone films were there?
Lord knows.
But definitely inspired the replicators in Stargate.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I agree with the chat on that. That the replicators far superior. If I'm going to be honest, it's the living liquid metal doesn't quite cut it in my mind. It's a really visually awesome concept.
Yeah.
In terms of my sci-fi mind requires a little bit more sci.
Take care, Miranda.
Good night, Miranda.
Night, Miranda.
There have been loads.
Oh yeah, they was it. Screamers was one where they had technically Terminators, and don't forget Blade Runner.
Yes.
Though android versus robots, that becomes kind of a whole different discussion when you put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take it back again, the ideas. One of the ideas, the basic idea behind Terminator is, again going back to Asimov, is what did Asimov have in his mind when he came? What caused Asimov to think, okay, the first thing my robots must have, first overriding control on my robots must be they can't harm humans.
But Asimov have a different alignment, I would say it is. Because if you compare Asimov's 3 law of robotics to that of Terminator, Terminator doesn't see humanity as its own fault and therefore has to be protected against itself. Because do no harm to humans is technically Asimov's concept. Whereas Terminator considers, well, Skynet, if we put it that way, it considers humanity as a threat to itself.
Colossus, the Forming Project, that was with Brad Dillman, I think. But I think there was another one. You're right with Charlton Heston. Not Damnation Alley, because Damnation Alley was George Peppard, and it wasn't about someone's coming away. But yeah, but no, what I mean is Jim, is that the idea of technology turning against us is not a new one. It's a much broader thing. I think Asimov actually said what the reason he came up with those laws of robotics was, okay, fine. He invented the laws of robotics with a specific purpose of being able to get around them, or at least finding out how far he could go with them. Yep, war games. Interesting. The only way to win is not to play the game.
That's true.
And
Yeah,
that is
that
so
is
true these
also
days.
that is in my mind a really good AI because that is an AI that can be taught.
Well, yes, exactly.
Colin's got a thin bot in his wardrobe.
Don't be silly.
Oh,
Don't-
you'd know that is
don't-
going
yeah,
to be a
yeah.
thing.
Don't be silly. I don't let my fembots wear bras. Free the fembot boobs. Free the fembot nipple. No, not
Oh,
quite.
there, you're going to give the internet some ideas now.
We won't go any further down that one. Yes. Yes, okay. Yes. But question now, I'm trying to think. Actually, no, the only that must be okay, so I'm now going to show my age here. That must be that's the second generation of fembots. The switch was Austin Powers, because the first generation of fembots were from the Bionic Woman, although they were actually inspired by Reisman, and they were actually inspired by the robots in Westworld. You can't plant things like that and not expect me to bite something like that. Come on, this is me. You can't expect me not to follow a trail like that. You must be glad we're talking robots and nothing I can actually take back to the 15th century. Although the Colossus of Rhodes. So, that's how Ray Harryhausen's thought that is. Yeah, Maria in Metropolis. Yeah, Maria in Metropolis. Yes. Well, the whole thing is I think is something that since our technology's got there has fascinated us. We're not sure as a species. We're not sure what to do with our technology. I mean, you mentioned Jim. You mentioned about the going for mud huts. I thought one of the most insightful comments. Yeah, Stepford Wives as well.
Yes.
One of the most, except the Stepford Wives didn't actually have guns in their boobs. There's a line or a scene in Morecambe Mindy, the old Robin Williams series. The basics. Exactly. The basic setup is that Mindy's Nan is feeling sad because a friend of hers has passed away, so Mork artificially ages himself. Makes friends with Nan, so she doesn't feel so lonely. And at the end of the program, at the end of the episode, he blows his cover. And he blows his cover, including the fact that he's from outer space.
Mm-hmm.
And the salient point is that when he says that Nan is not surprised, Nan's telling him, says, well, in my lifetime, we've gone from the first manned flights to landing on the moon.
Yeah.
So you've got the last 66 years between the Wright brothers and Neil Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've gone back since then, of course, but you know, about how much that technology has advanced. You know, when we get to that point, we do suddenly start advance some. You know, to get to a point where some and advancing that quickly. It's no wonder we can't understand. We can't cope with it, or at least look, we have somewhere within our psyche we have a degree of existential fears and concerns about technology. You know.
Well, the thing, and I know I'm stepping away from the Terminator genre here, but something that Star Trek used to do quite well was its own built-in bigotry at hand. So if we take the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager, he's the Mark I medical hologram.
Yeah.
He's a failure. So whereas the Doctor in the Delta Quadrant becomes self-aware, he learns, he becomes a proper AI in that sense.
Yeah.
The holograms that are still stuck in the Alpha Quadrant back on Earth, they basically get chucked into slavery,
Yes.
like the robot slavery, heaven I was gonna say, but hell, whatever you would call it.
Oh, so yeah, go on, mate.
And I was just gonna say, I think when it comes to AI, if we ever manage to get into that step, we're still gonna be a little bit crap as the human
Yeah.
race, and just chuck them into those useless, like
The jobs nobody
TV roles.
wants.
Yeah.
Well, no, what I was going to say was I'll take you back two, well, not generations, 2 iterations, if you like. The Measure of a Man, Star Trek.
Yeah, good episode.
Sorry, Star Trek Next Gen.
Yeah.
Where okay, so nowadays we would probably roll our eyes at how heavy-handed it is, but Guinan is talking where data's on the basic data on 12. Is he being on? Does he have a right to his own tweaks with unable, etc., etc. And there's one point where he, he's going to listen, and there's really good speeches from whatever you may think of him as his opinions. Patrick Stewart is a superb actor. But there's one where he where Guinan comes back and says about, you're talking about something that they could have actually done with remembering in the Voyager era. She comes back and says about I can't remember the exact details, but basically she's talking about putting things to work and basically Picard turns around and says, you're talking about slavery. So yeah, question is, at what point do we have our robots do robots get to that point where we're putting them to work for something, to replace us, and there's a potentially really challenging moral concepts there. But I think the interesting, I think the anodyne to that, the reverse of that, is Ian Banks's Culture series, where humanity is ruled by AIs, but the AIs are 100% beneficent, to the point that they are quite prepared to put humanity ahead of themselves, and see no reason why humans shouldn't do the same. So they're quite that a cultural AI will put itself in a situation where, for the good of everyone else, it's going to be destroyed, and they expect humans to do exactly the same. They try to hold humans up to the high standards of the AIs rather than destroying the other way around.
I think it's rather trying to describe the fact that humanity, we do have, as many sci-fis do describe, we are really the greatest heroes, but also the greatest villains at the same time. We have such extremely high ideals, but we often fail to live up to them. And I think that's probably what the AI is judging on.
Well, not the other thing, in fact, is to sort of the question would be, turn it on itself and say which is the worst, which would be worse, a tyrannical AI or a beneficial AI which actually believes what it says.
Should we get the AIs to watch Terminator films?
But no, but the question there, I said the challenge, I think that is, we've got this, and I'm honestly not sure. I mean,
I'm gonna be brutally honest and say that I think a benevolent AI will be far worse than a tyrannical one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would expect you to live up to the standards that you say you set.
Mhm.
And oh boy, very, very few people will be capable of that.
Yep.
Yep.
Very few people.
Well, so right, okay. So now we've been like all over the place from all this, you know. Terminator 1 and 2. It still holds up to this day, correct?
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Unlike this, well, I don't want to mention the sequels, but all I can say is that when I watched Terminator 2 the other day as well, I got the ending where they succeeded, and then you had future Sarah Connor speaking. You got her son John pushing his daughter on the swing, saying, "Yes, 97 came and went, and that was it." You know, but we don't know if it will happen in the future.
Yep.
Yeah,
I like this ending.
Yeah, because that was a happy ending, but they never kept it in the theatrical cut.
I wouldn't say this exactly the happy ending. It happened now, and
Yeah.
it's probably going to happen. It's just that we stopped it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was good. Well, the thing is, it's just like, I mean, I was thinking, Terminator movies, the whole Terminator franchise, takes the worst, well, not necessarily the worst, but certainly takes an extremely pessimistic view of, shall we say, technology achieving a degree of sentience.
Mhm.
But I don't know, the culture sort of turns around. But I'm just wondering if any, if any, anything in film or TV has taken the opposite point of view. But
Hmm.
I doubt it, because the problem is it probably wouldn't make very good drama.
It
Yeah.
depends on
Well,
what
it
you're
might be.
looking for in terms of a storytelling,
Hmm.
but Terminator genre is limited in terms of what it really talks
Yeah.
about and covers. But then again, the title itself kind of binds it down to that these are specific machines doing a very specific thing.
Yeah.
We don't really have any idea of what else Skynet is really doing.
Yeah. What's
And
what?
I will sadly jump to another genre here. We have the AI in the Matrix,
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
because that AI is trying to provide humanity with some sort of life. And it
Mhm.
says the peak of civilization, so essentially where humanity had it the best, and all of that. I mean, they could have put the AI could have put humans as a hunter-gatherer tribe
Mm.
civilization, not having technology or anything, which would have prevented them completely from being able to understand computers, and therefore, if they ever got free, they would have no clue how to defeat robots or computers
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Well, the thing is, I was thinking, it just when I said that about the other side of it, you've also got another genre that kind of spins off from Terminator, although I suspect is equally much inspired by Asimov. You've got films or TV series like Almost Human,
Mhm.
and the Total Recall, which they mainly tends to be cop shows where you've got a human cop partnered up with a
Yeah.
police cop.
Yeah.
You know, so there you have got things where the technology is a lot more in service to.
Yeah.
It's still aware, but it is non-hostile to mankind.
Well, I think most of those stories where we do have the robots being done for a specific purpose, they almost all of them, I wouldn't say all, but a significant majority are around the whole thing of when the robot gets connection with a human, not humanity, a human, they get taught the better values, and therefore they become more friendly and more, say, more acceptable, more what
Yeah.
we would like the robots to be. But
Yeah.
I think the Terminator series is showing humanity as its limited form, that we will design them for one single purpose, and that's how they will be, and they will not be able to, at least not that easily, break out of it. So we will do the horrible thing that Terminator is talking about. We will create our own destruction from it.
Yeah.
Whether or not we will create an AI that creates its own destruction by doing its self-fulfilling prophecy, as in Terminator 2, yeah, we will see probably in our lifetime, because AI is probably coming soon. But
Very nice.
yeah,
Very, very chilling, isn't it? Very chilling.
Yeah.
still.
Mm.
And props
Well,
to your background there, Alex, taking a
thank
scene
you.
from Terminator 2. A
Yep.
very, very costly scene.
Oh, yes. Well, shall we start wrapping up now, gentlemen?
Why not?
Been a very interesting talk, about these two films. But Colin, what is going on for you at the moment?
Not a great deal. I tend to be making my presence felt mainly on the Rabbi's channel I'm sorry, I tend to be in the chat. I tend to in chat on the Rabbi's channel, Mr. Brown. Hopefully, Father Miller will be back on Friday, and I tend to end up on the panel with Father Miller.
Won't be, Jim. Jim, it's great having you back. How
It's
you
good to
enjoying
be
yourself
back.
where you are?
Yeah, enjoying life as it is at the moment. Experienced the Scandinavian spring, early summertime. We've had the bonfire, the Valpurgis is just come and gone. Barbecue and all of that lovely stuff out in the nature. Other than that, I haven't been up to that much recently. I'm waiting for the June game to drop in June to see how it is, because it's supposed to be telling the story of June
Yes.
around Arrakis, but it is not, or Paul Atreides is not in this, but it
Yes.
is around the time where Paul Atreides should have been.
Ah.
So which one's
So
that?
it's Dune Awakening. The game is
All
called.
right. Oh, it's a
So
game.
yeah, so they essentially set it at the same time as the what most I don't want to call them normies, but the ones that have seen the Dune films, they connect it to Paul Atreides, although the universe is much bigger than just that. But they've set the game storyline around the time where Paul Atreides should have been, but they removed the Paul Atreides bit. So the Atreides is supposed to be there, the Harkonnen is supposed to be there, but it's no Paul Atreides. It's
Well,
you.
I mean, if you think about it, it is a massive, a literally galaxy-wide human polity. So there's massive, even literally just in that time, never mind the 10,000 years before, there's so much space for storytelling there.
Yep.
I was,
And I'm kind of looking forward to it from a the same, but removing the huge part that everyone's seen in the film, which is basically centered around Paul.
I must admit, I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to Villeneuve's doing Dune Messiah or not, because he screwed up this timeline. He massively screwed up the whole story in June 2.
Yeah, the story kind of. I didn't like it, but still, I would say for a refreshing dive into Dune, I would say it's done pretty well.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just, I think it was just the one big change where he literally just brings things forward by 3 years.
Yep.
So that screws another people up.
Yeah. To quickly change subject a little bit, I discovered a new book series for those that are so inclined. It's by the author Craig Allenson, and the book series is called Convergence. And I told Alex about this one. Convergence is centered around a human living in our time, our modern time, current year, whatever you want to call it. And he's a wizard. But he's not really good of a wizard because magic hasn't existed for quite some time. So his preferred weapon of choice is a Glock because he doesn't really have that much magic. But the story evolves from there on, and it begins with him meeting a talking dog. And when I say talking dog, we're not talking an entity with human reasoning. We're talking a dog that talks. So the dog talks and explains and reasons from the perspective of a dog, which leads to many hilarious sequences. Like he's trying to describe why he hunts a squirrel, because it's a squirrel, because it's a rodent. I don't like rodents. They need to be bitten. And it's absolutely hilarious. And the story expands onto, a little later, it comes in a talking cat, which turns out to be an elder, which turns out to be a god. And there's also a genie that pops up fairly quickly. So I'm not really giving too much of a spoiler, but the genie is very snarky, expects a lot from this wizard. So he calls him an imbecile quite a lot because the hero has literally no training whatsoever in wizardry because there has been no wizards around for forever. And the genie also has one major character flaw. He's a massive coward. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. It's a lot of fun in it, and the storyline is quite well. There's 4 books so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing when the 5th come out.
Go check it out, everyone. Go check it out. But anyway, before we go, Colin, you said about the picture in the background, right? You thought it was a boat. It's not a boat.
No, it's. I'll tell you what it is. It's because of the blue.
Yes.
I thought it looked as if it was underwater. That's what it was because
it's not a boat. It's a highway flyover.
Yeah. Okay. See another. Yeah. No, I can see. Yeah, I see it. In fact, very reminiscent Fallout as well. But yeah, but no, it's I see it was because it wasn't massively clear what it was because it's got small on the screen, and because of the blue. I think is what made me think it was a boat. But,
well, anyway, it's great talking to you. It's great having you also on, Jim, tonight. Thank you for being our guest.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I'll be back with PJ at the end of this month on the 31st with Let's Talk Geeky, 97, I think. And me and Colin will hopefully be back some point in June with another Monday night with FFSI.
Should be a month's time.
So, anyway, thanks for everyone out there in the chat and everything. And also, please like, share, subscribe, carry a pigeon or whatever, And, have a great month and see you hopefully next month with me and Colin and probably another guest.
See you guys next time. Have a good night, everybody.
We'll be back for Let's Talk Geeky on the Saturday the 31st. So mark down your calendars. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.